I'm Tieska Jumbo, and I am back with another book review. I am still reviewing The Personal Librarian by Marie Benedict and Victoria Christopher Murray. This is a historical fiction novel about Belle da Costa Greene, who was J.P. Morgan's personal librarian. She was a Black woman who passed for white in order to improve her family's social situation, and she was able to navigate this world as a white woman, even though she was really a Black woman. I have been sitting and thinking about this book and thinking about modern day, and my conclusion is that racial passing is 2025's imposter syndrome. So the definition of racial passing is presenting yourself as a different race to gain social advantages, to gain access, to gain or to escape discrimination. And then imposter syndrome is the constant fear of being exposed as a fraud, or believing that you weren't bright, or that you don't deserve to be where you are. And there are three main facets of this that I want to talk about and compare Belle's experience to our experience today. So number one, Belle passed as white, and that decision could have been a matter of life or death had she been exposed, because it was the late 1800s and early 1900s. So even though slavery had ended at that time, the laws were still not in favor of Black people in the United States. So she lived under constant fear of being found out, and that had implications not just for herself, but for her whole family. She was the breadwinner, and so she lost that income. The whole family lost the income. We pass today, especially in like corporate America. If you work in the workplace, then in some way as a Black woman, you are passing. I'll get more into that in a minute. But so Belle lived under constant fear of being exposed in her daily life. And a lot of Black women today are carrying this imposter syndrome, especially in the workplace. Today, it isn't necessarily a matter of life and death. It is a matter of self-erasure, of erasing who we really are. Paul Laurence Dunbar wrote a poem called We Wear the Mask, and it was about that, wearing a mask and having to present yourself in a certain way, but the impacts, the negative impacts that having that mask on have on a person. So Belle was under the ultimate performance. She was fair-skinned. She was fair enough to pass, but not so fair that people didn't question her. That her skin got darker in the sunlight. She had to keep her hair tucked back and pinned up so that the texture wasn't exposed. I think her eyes, were a different color, like maybe gray or something. So it just caused people to kind of look at her skeptically. So she could pass, but not with flying colors. So there were still different things that she had to do to keep her appearance in check, to make sure that she fit in with society. She had to get all the proper dresses. She had to learn the social customs and all these different things that she had to do to be good in this performance. And oftentimes today, Black women are doing the same things. So if you talk to a Black woman about her hair in the workplace, I'm sure she's got a story or 15. For a long time, we wore our hair straight, to keep white people satisfied. I mean, Michelle Obama just had a conversation about this with Tracy Ellis Ross about hair, and she has spoken at length now in the last several months about how she had to wear her hair a certain way, or how she avoided wearing braids for 8 years because she was in the White House and she didn't want to cause a firestorm. So all of these things that Black women are doing, it's a very similar thing. We're trying to pass even our tone. If you've been in corporate America or you've been in a workplace, it's very easy to have your tone policed as a Black woman, when we try to make sure that we speak in an even tone, that we don't get too upset, that we don't get too emotional or get too excited, because we know that there is a great chance that there will be a negative reaction based on if we have a little bit of attitude in our voice, if we raise our voice a little bit, the angry Black woman thing. So we're under this ultimate performance as well, even though we're not trying to pass as white. We're still trying to pass as acceptable. And then Belle lived under this constant fear of being found out. There's a section where she's got this love interest, and she can tell he's poking at her to share a little bit of who she is. She's having some alone time with this love interest, and he says, it says, Bernard is quiet for a long moment. I sense that you are keeping secrets from me, Belle. There is a certain reticence about you, a mystery I cannot solve, even though secrecy is a language I speak. In some ways, it may well be the one in which I'm most fluent, and I suspect the same is true of you, and yet I can't decipher you. And then she says, no matter how close I feel to Bernard, how connected to him intellectually and emotionally, I will never divulge my secret. He also says, during 2 separate intimate moments, he made troubling observations. Your hair is so different in the morning, and your skin gets so dark in this Italian sun. Comments that sounded more like prompts for disclosure than innocent reflections. So she was under this constant gaze, even somebody who was in love with her, just under this constant gaze. And so she lived under this constant fear of being found out, even, going home to Washington, D.C. when her grandmother passed, I think it was her grandmother, they had to take a certain path, to not be seen. And when she was out in public, her mom or when there were other Black people around, her mother told her, don't make eye contact with them, because a white person wouldn't make eye contact. So it's just all these things that she had to do because she was afraid of being found out and she didn't want to be. And so today we do a very similar thing, but it looks like perfectionism. It looks like overachieving. So I believe Black women are still like the highest educated group of demographic in the United States. Yet we still have imposter syndrome. We still don't feel like we're qualified to be at the table. Sometimes we feel like, oh, I just need this one other certification before I'm ready. Or I just need to get some more projects under my belt before I'm ready. Or maybe it's a mentor. No, we already have all the qualifications, more qualifications than we need, but we're still afraid that they're going to find out that maybe we're not as intelligent as we think we are, but that's not true. And so we're having the same experience that Belle had. It just looks a little bit different. And what this ultimately does, what it did to Belle is it stole her joy. She was brilliant. So the only thing that was the only thing that was an imposter about her, that was fake about her, was the fact that she wasn't white. Everything else was true. Her intellectual abilities were true. The amount of studying that she did was true. All of that was true. There's one more thing I wanted to say about overachievement. So Belle had this pressure, not just internally, but from her mother as well. And there was one evening where she went out to a party, and her mother, she came home late, and her sister was waiting up because her sister wanted to hear all about the fashion and all of these things. And her mom was kind of looking at her like, you're out here in these streets wilding. It's too late. You don't have the freedom. You don't have the luxury of being out here and risking, being exposed. I'm going to read a section. Night, Belle, Teddy says, giving me a quick kiss and then scooting into the bedroom. I should get ready for bed myself, I say. I'll tell you about the ball tomorrow. Mama doesn't say anything, but glances at the dining room table. My stack of language texts has spilled over. Is she angry that I left my workbooks out? Don't you have your daily studying to do? I don't believe you had time between work and the party, and you don't want to lose the ground you've gained in your languages. My eyes widen with surprise. I've been diligent in my studies, but surely, since these lessons are my choice, I can miss one evening. It's past midnight, Mama. I think it can wait for tonight. Are you certain, Belle? It's not a question. You told me how critical your facility with Latin, German, and French is for your position. Do you think another J.P. Morgan will come knocking on your door if you fail? So she just had all this pressure, so that overachievement. So she had already had the job, but now she's trying to learn all these languages so she has the extra advantage on the job. So Belle didn't have the luxury of making a mistake, and it wasn't just her mother that reminded her of that. J.P. Morgan reminded her of that in different ways at different times. And in this chapter, he made it very explicit. She said, instead of denying it again, I say, yes, sir. And I'm sorry. It was a mistake to... He interrupts me. You don't have the luxury of making mistakes, Miss Greene, he says without realizing how true his words are. Not as long as you are my ambassador and you work for me. And again, I say, yes, sir, I understand. His eyes are dark when he peers at me. There is something that you must never forget. I nod. It is my name that is carved above this library's doors, not yours. And I never want to have to remind you of that again. So she had all this pressure and just all of these things that are on her to remind her of her position and what was at stake. And a lot of times Black women, we have that same weight, even though it's not a matter of life and death, but we do feel like we're holding the balance. A lot of times we are holding our families together from both ends. You may be in the sandwich generation, so you've got older parents and young kids, and you are the glue that holds the family together. Or you may be an equal breadwinner in your marriage, so it both you and your spouse are required to bring your incomes in order to hold these things together. Or maybe you're a single parent, and you are really, everybody is dependent on you. The stakes are just really, really high sometimes for Black women, and it is exhausting. It's exhausting to have to carry all of that pressure and then also mask who we are at the same time. And I want us to remember that the imposter syndrome, it steals our joy, and we don't really have to carry it. We don't. It feels like we do. It feels like we do, but I want to encourage us all to just take the mask off and show up as we really are. Because when you feel that weight of imposter syndrome, it doesn't really mean that you're not good enough. It just means that you've been trained to believe that you won't be accepted as your true self. And we've been taught that for years. We've been taught that our bodies are not right, that our hair is not right, that our lips are not right, that our skin is not right. We've been taught that our real selves won't be accepted. I want you to remember that we say imposter syndrome today like it's a personal flaw, like it's a character trait that we just are carrying around. But for women, especially Black women, this is something that is we've inherited, because passing has always been survival and performing was survival. But at this stage, it's 2025, and we deserve more than to just survive. So if Belle had been able to really live as her full self, just imagine the freedom that she would have felt and how she would have rocked it, because she was incredibly intelligent. So we may not control the world that we walk into. We don't control what happens in these corporate streets. We don't control what happens in these academia streets, but we can stop dimming our own light when we walk in there. We can walk in with our full selves, with our full joy, and just let everybody else deal with it. So that I'm gonna leave that right there. I highly recommend this book. I hope you found my perspective interesting. I would love to hear your thoughts. So let me know if you've read the book, if you did, what resonated with you, if you agree or disagree with my thought that passing is modern day imposter syndrome. I would love to know what you think. Let me know in the comments. Peace.